So in today's session, right, we're going to talk about Node packages or Node modules. Yesterday we got slightly introduced to this topic. Today's session is going to be more of hands-on. I don't know how productive we can be in the 3-hour session about doing hands-on on the topics. So the primary concept for the topic is Node packages and modules. We're going to start off by doing a simple example from Node.js, what we have done yesterday with a recap, hands-on session. We're going to use the FS module of Node.js, the file system module, to read and write contents to a file. Then we're going to create our own calculator app using the Node.js module system. How we are going to create a calculator function and then work with it. Next, we're going to talk about local versus global packages. Example of a global package called as uncss, which you'll see, which is pretty interesting. We're going to talk about the NPM registry. We're going to debug Node applications using a debugger called as Node Inspector. So yesterday I was mentioning that with WebStorm, it comes in with a Node debugger out of box. But if you're using standard text editors, the easiest way to do debugging is using a Node Inspector. So we'll look at how to use it today. Next, after that, we're going to create our own Node modules. I'm going to introduce you to 3 huge in-market Node modules named as Yeoman, Grunt, and Bower. Yeoman, Grunt, and Bower are tooling systems built out of Node.js. So you'll see the true power of how Node.js can be utilized. If time permits and we have bandwidth, we'll talk about a bit about Node unit. It is unit testing Node code. Otherwise, we have a separate session on testing Node.js code. So you guys are pretty clear on what Node.js is, how we do things, and so on, so that we can directly work on the hands-on aspect of it, right? Cool. Okay, awesome. So let's get started off. If you go back to the presentation, right, we will be going through the presentation, the concepts and topics of it, and then later on we'll be talking about the hands-on part, right? So we are in the second module right now. That is modules and packages of Node.js. Just a quick heads up, the ordering of the modules might change a bit. So I am planning to introduce the mean stack development approach for building Node applications. If you did not hear, mean stands for MongoDB, Express, JS, AngularJS, and Node.js. So this is a full stack development architecture built end-to-end with JavaScript alone. So you do not have any other languages to work with end-to-end application development. I'm trying to fit that in the course curriculum in such a way that you guys are up to date with the latest framework in the Node world with respect to developing web applications. So I might not deal much with AngularJS in particular. I'll give you a heads up about when we are going to do AngularJS, and then you can go about brushing up yourself with the concepts, and then we're going to work with it. If you think you don't want AngularJS to be your client-side framework, then we could probably use simple HTML5 and jQuery also to work with it. So we are in the second module of the complete course, modules and packages. By the end of this topic, you'll be able to understand NPM CLI. When working with Node.js, you'll be hearing the word CLI a lot. CLI in simple terms stands for command line interface. As you have seen already, most of the stuff we do with Node.js is command line oriented. So we'll be building our own command line instances, our own modules. Next, we're going to work with our own modules. We're going to understand package.json. I'm going to give you an online resource where you can get more info about package.json. Finally, we are going to build the calculator app and then publish it to the NPM repository. If time permits, we'll try to push everything together, that is your packages as well as my packages, onto the NPM. Otherwise, you guys can replay the video and implement it yourself, and you can shoot out questions in the next class if you have any. So far, we have seen a couple of commands: npm install, npm uninstall. We didn't look at npm update. So as the command says, right, if you have a package, so yesterday we were talking about packages and versions. So we saw that in the package.json. So if you see the package.json, it has a chalk version of 1.0.0. Now let us say that when you started the project 3 months ago, chalk version was 1.0.0 and you want to update it to the latest version, say 1.1.0. So all you need to do is run npm update and it is going to check for all the packages in your dependencies as well as dev dependencies and peer dependencies, and it goes and gets those updated packages for you. If you want to update only one package, you can run npm update the package name. In this case, it is going to update only that one package and not the entire list in your package.json. Also, we have seen the options like -g, which we're going to work more with today, -save, -save dev, where we have seen -save puts the contents into the dependencies, and whereas -save devs put the packages in the development dependencies. We also looked at npm init, where you initialize a new package.json file. Let me make this full screen. Where you initialize a new package.json. Today we are going to work with npm add user. So once we create our own Node module, the easiest way to publish it, the way to publish it by adding user or your credentials and then pushing the package to the npm repository using npm add user and npm publish. We're going to look at that a bit later. Next, npm whoami returns the npm username to the terminal. As of now, if you run this on your machine, you should not be able to get anything. You can directly try this. Open any git bash and directly type npm whoami without any spaces. Since I did not set up my own machine, it clearly says here, if you can see there in the message, npm whoami requires you to be logged in. You need to authorize this machine using npm add user. Since we have not yet added ourselves as add user, npm whoami is going to return empty. Also, you can run the command called as npm ls, and it's going to list all the modules that are all the modules that are installed in the current folder. If you want to get all the ones in the global, I think so it is -g, if I'm not wrong. npm ls -g, yes. So this is going to print out the tree structure of all the modules that is installed on your machine globally. Whereas npm ls in a folder where already node packages are there or a package.json is there will print the list of commands that is present in that particular folder. Similarly, to check the outdated packages in your application, let us say that you have run your project, you have released 1.0 and you are going to the next release. Since our applications are versioned with the exact number, we are not going to change it very frequently. But before you start off the next release for your project, you want to see how many packages in your repository have been outdated. So you can check for the list of outdated packages and then decide whether you want to upgrade to the new version or not. So this is helpful between releases. Also, yesterday we were talking about scripts in Node.js, which, for example, in this package.json, we had the scripts called as test. Similarly, you can add other scripts also inside this. I'll show you how to do it. So for instance, if I go to the example3 folder, clear the console and run npm and the name of the script called as test, it is going to return saying that no test specified, test failed, see above for more information. The no test specified message is printed here. For instance, I can write another script called as start. The start script, I'm going to say node index.js. What this is going to do is that this is a command which will get run that will launch index.js. So previously we used to run node index.js to see the output. Now you can run npm start and then it is going to do the exact same thing. These are scripts in Node.js. When we look at a few more components today, some more advanced libraries, you can see some scripts which can be run as post-install scripts. So if a package is installed, what you want to do after that, and so on. So there's a huge configuration available with this. You can also create your own things called as npm start, npm stop, and npm test. When we are working with our Node packages, we are going to deal with when we are going to open it, work with our own packages, we are going to deal with a command called as npm link. npm link creates a symbolic link of the current project in your application. This will make more sense when we work with it. Next, npm publish and npm unpublish. As you must have guessed, these are used to be pushing your report code to the npm registry. How do you associate a Sublime text file with your terminal? So I did not associate a Sublime text file with a terminal. what I have done is that I have installed a package called as Open Terminal here. So you can go to Google and type Sublime Text 3 Open Terminal plugin. This is one setting out there which you could use when you to open a command prompt here. So I'll give you the exact name of the package which I'm using. It is called as Terminal. So you can go to the, when you have the package manager, we spoke about packagecontrol.io yesterday. In the packagecontrol.io, we click on install. Then you pick your Sublime Text 3 or Sublime Text 2 version. Copy this, and then you come back to your Sublime Text, press Control tilde, and you can paste this here. And then once this executes and you press Command Shift P, you'll get this window, or Control Shift P in case of this thing. You click on install, and then you get the install package window which you're going to see here. Here you can type terminal. Since terminal package is already installed on my machine, you will be able to see it. You will not be able to see it here, but when you run it, you'll be able to see the terminal. When you hit enter, it is going to install. Once it is installed, you can right click inside any file and you'll see this command called as open terminal here. And then when you click on it, a terminal gets opened at that location. So does that help, Vasu? Yes, definitely. This is very helpful and handy when working with Node.js, at least for now. So the next part is about package.json. The beauty about package.json, as we already saw yesterday, is that it consists of all the metadata needed for your project. Okay, so if you have used IDEs, right? IDEs create IDE-specific file that consists of configurations, the settings, the setups, everything that is needed to run this project. Similarly, package.json consists of all the information we need to do that. So we're going to talk a bit more about package.json today. Yesterday we spoke about the two main important fields that is needed for a package.json. One is the name of your project. It must be short, should not have a JS or Node word inside it. If you are going to publish your package in the NPM repository, we need to check the availability. I'll tell you how to check the availability. Next, we're going to have a version. So we spoke about the Semver format, how Node and all its package modules follow, where you have a major version, minor version, and a patch. Next, we're going to talk about the description attribute, where you can talk more about your package. So when somebody searches the NPM repository, it will be easy, you can find your package. Next, a list of keywords that will help you in searching your package. Homepage URL, the URL for your project. Also, it's very good to specify the bugs for your project. So a quick poll, how many of you guys have a GitHub account or know how GitHub, or at least use GitHub? So let me show you something about this. So I'm going to take you to my GitHub account. I have quite a lot of projects which are published in the Node.js world. Apart from that, I do a lot of work with my the web development space also. So this is my GitHub profile. That's me. If you don't know how I look, that's me. So I am based out of Hyderabad here in India. So I have written quite a few Node modules myself and then published it for the greater good. So if you look at any Node.js repository, every repository in your GitHub has a link called as issues. So when you have the link called as issues, so this is a place where people would come and raise issues for your project. So if you see this, right, I have written my own database called as DiskDB. Okay, this is a Node module which we might not look at through the session, but you can run a command like npm install DiskDB and it installs it on your machine. So if I click here, it is going to take me to the npm page for this particular module. That is here. As you can see from here, it consists of all the information about the project which is there. So I like keeping things very well documented so that people will not have any issues. So on the right hand side of the page, you see something called as stats. Stats say that there were 20 downloads in the last day, 95 downloads in the last week, and 341 downloads of this package in the last month. There are 2 open issues on GitHub and no pull requests. So these are the list of keywords that I have used to describe. This particular package is dependent on 3 modules called as Node UUID, merge, and shop. There are 3 modules out there which use my package and then are built on top of it. They use this package called as diskdb, and they have built their own Node modules using this as a dependency, or this becomes a dependent in that package. Coming back to the issues link, when I click on 2 open issues, it takes me to the GitHub page. When you or somebody is trying to evaluate this particular package, if it is good for your application, typically how you check is you go to the GitHub page, check when was the application last updated. So this is kind of a stable release. So this is a prototype database which I've written for testing purposes and writing quick apps and prototyping your ideas. So it's pretty much stable. I'm not updating this or anything. So the last update which I did was about 7 months ago, and then I've not done anything. Next is the number of stars this application has. How good or how bad it is depends on number of stars. How many people have forked this repo, and then how many people are watching this repo for changes. That is a primary concern. Next thing is that you can click on the issues link and see how many issues are there. So far there were totally 6 issues. If I remove this, hit enter, there were totally 6 issues which were raised on this. There are still 2 open issues. So this whole database which I have created is a synchronous database. Excuse me. So one of the guy had a requirement that he wants to make it as an asynchronous. So he has forked this repository and he's working on it to make it asynchronous. So so I kept the issue open. So there are other things also here which says that find method in this does not return the correct result when query contains more than one property. So this is another issue which was faced by him. So sometimes the issues also provide solutions. So I still didn't test this solution out, but if I test it out, it's going to work, and then I'm going to close this issue by replacing my solution. So this is how you evaluate generally a GitHub or a Node module, how good or how bad is it. So this is just something which I wrote. Let me show you something which is popular. If you go to npmjs.com, on the home page you have a list of top packages. Let's pick something which we are going to use probably in the future. It's called Express. Right? When you click on this, these are like the proper facts. You can see the collaborators, how many times it is downloaded in the last day, the last month, last week, and last month. How many open issues are there, how many pull requests are there. As you can see, this is a huge repository, so many people are working on it. There are 24 dependencies for this project, and there are 4,900 probably 50 more projects dependent on this thing. So as you can see, this is a huge project, pretty well documented. If you want to know about all the open issues, you can click on the GitHub link. On the top, you can see the number of stars. It has around 18,000 stars for this project. It has around 3,700 forks, and around 1,200 people are watching this. Some projects which are maintained by multiple people are tagged and maintained very neatly. Because this is used by a lot of people, they keep all these things, whether it's a discussion, an idea, enhancement, a question, a bug, and so on. Also, if you're looking at big projects and thinking of how good or how bad it is to adopt it, you can click on the milestone link. When you click on the milestone link, you'll see the future releases for this application. Okay, so you can look at the milestones and identify what is going to happen. So this will give you a good idea of whether you should consider this particular package for your project or not. Going back to the GitHub repository, you can see when was this package last updated. So a month ago is the latest, 15 days ago. So they added a few examples here. Yeah, 15 days ago was the latest. Also, you can check out the other branches. Generally, projects which are this big run separate branches for each version. So let us say that the current version, the way you know the current version is, you can generally add a badge like this for the version, or you can open the package.json file and the version number will tell you what is the actual version. It's 4.12.3. Let us say that you're considering to use this particular node module in your projects. You actually open up and see 4.x branch. See what are the changes happening, what are the things going on. So looks like this branch is pretty much stable. Nobody is making any changes. maybe you can check out the 5.0 branch, which I guess pretty much everybody making changes. I think that is also stagnated. 6 months ago. Let me see if there is another one which is going on 5.x. Nope, this development has pretty much stagnated for this. So you can be rest assured that whatever is in the master is going to be stable for quite some time. And then you can read about the documentation, quick start guides, and everything which comes up with this project. So you guys have any questions on how to check out a Node package on NPM, map it with their GitHub counterpart, and analyze how to understand if a package is good or not for your application. So coming back to our question at hand, the reason you guys need a GitHub account is because every single Node package is linked to a GitHub counterpart. Till recently, NPM did not have a private package concept. Recently, NPM launched NPM.js private package. They recently launched this feature called as private modules in NPM, where you could create modules where nobody can use it, but you have to pay for these modules. So generally, they have created a concept called as scopes, which you're going to discuss a bit later in today, if time permits. Otherwise, we'll do it in the next session, of how you can create your own private Node packages. Till then, everything, whatever you do, will be linked up from your GitHub account. So as you can see here, bugs. This is another section in your package.json people add. It says an object specifying the URL of the issue tracker and or the email address to send an issue to. Both fields are not compulsory. The entire bug property on the package.json is not mandatory. Next, a license property. You can specify a license for your package, so people know when they're consuming your package whether they should use it or not, or if they have to provide any attribution back to you while using your packages, or they need to pay you money and so on. So people is another property on this. Yesterday we saw a property called as author. You can also have another property called as contributors. None of them is hard and fastly written inside the package.json. Since this is a JSON structure, you can create any property on it. But please make sure that it's as clean as possible and do not add any unnecessary information on it. You can also specify configuration parameters. You can look up this URL about the config. A config object can be used to set configurations. So generally we have a task runner like Grunt or Gulp where we manage all these configurations. But in case you're not planning to use a task runner, you could actually add these things, like the same way how we created a start method in our package.json to initialize our application. We can also add a configuration and then pass in the configuration values also. So like, and then add a start command that references the npm underscore package underscore config underscore port environment variable, where the user could override that by doing npm config set whatever application, set the config value and use it. So we rarely do a thing like this in Node.js unless until it is very proprietary to the architect who has developed the package.json and he does not want to use any external configuration tools. Next, we have also seen the dependencies, dev dependencies. We're going to deal with it a bit more. So these not necessarily have to be NPM packages. In place of your version, you can give URL of the tarball which can be downloaded and or installed. You can do that as well. GitHub URL along with the tag or branch that can be supplied to Git checkout. The local path is the package to the local repository. We're going to deal with this when we write our own modules a bit later. So next we talked about dev dependency yesterday. Listing those dependencies needed for development of your package or module. These dependencies will be installed only if someone does an npm install in the source directory of your packages. However, for someone just using the package in his or her project, npm install will not download the dev dependencies. So to quickly explain this, the chalk module, if you see here in their package.json, has two sections. One is called as dependencies and one is called as dev dependencies. You see that in the Node modules which got created, the Matcha and Mocha, two modules are never downloaded in this. Because when you run npm install chalk, it's going to install all the dependencies part and not the development dependencies. For you to install the development dependencies, you have to navigate into the chalk folder like this and then run npm install. By the way, I is a shortcut for install. When you do that, the two packages which were as part of the dev dependencies are now added to the Node module. Generally, you don't need them unless until you are evaluating a package locally and then running test cases about these things and so on, which is not required. So this package.json here is quite a big one. We'll just take a look at it after we go through these slides. So here, for example, testing or documentation frameworks do not come as part of your dev dependencies. Peer dependencies. These are used to show dependencies in your package if your package is a plugin for some other library. So generally what happens is that so far we have, as I told you, we have only public projects. We do not have any concept of private NPM projects. So in the public projects also there are many open source projects which have more than one plugin or one module. So each of the module runs together with each other. In that case, right, you can deploy them with different versions. So let us say that you're building a module called a super module and it uses child module 1 and child module 2. In that case, you say name super module, peer dependencies child module 1 and child module 2. This goes to show that choco-py can be installed with version 3 and above Choco 3. That is what the version 3.x means. So we're going to talk a bit more about the versioning and what are the good and bad things to do with it. Also, Choco is also installed along with the ChocoPy module when you run npm install. There are other sections called as bundle dependencies, optional dependencies. Generally, we rarely use these three properties. So far, I did not find a need to use all these things because I'm going to introduce you to a tooling system which takes care of this thing. So bundle dependencies, an array of dependencies that will be bundled with your package. Optional dependencies that will be installed, but NPM will proceed further if the dependency cannot be found or the installation of the dependency fails. So generally the core modules of Node uses these concepts, bundle dependencies and optional dependencies. So sometimes when you're running an NPM install of a core package, you might be seeing this optional package failed or bundle dependency not available. Still the development works because they have written it in such a way. Next, there's another property called as engine. So you can provide which version of Node and which version of NPM is needed for the module to run. It is kind of mentioning the version of your runtime. So you say I want Java 5, Java 6, Java 7, Java 8. Similarly, you can mention the version of Node.js and the version of NPM needed for your project to run. So if you're using any Node 0.12.x specific features, so you say that the minimum version of Node should be greater than or equal to 0.12 or 0 and less than so and so or as you wish. Similarly, the version of NPM of which version you would like the commands to be run in. Most importantly, it is your program's responsibility to handle the lack of such dependencies. When you're working with bundle dependencies and optional dependencies, it is your responsibility to take care that if any of them crash, your module does not crash. The same concept goes as with any good developer. A good developer would always make sure that his application runs smoothly irrespective of the hiccup. You can also provide other properties like engine strict, OS, CPU, global variables, private, publish config. So one thing which is one key property here is called as preferred global. Here, this is set to true. Your package is primarily a command line package that needs to be installed globally. This will throw a warning if a user installs it locally. So we never set this property if I'm not wrong. We generally use the libs property inside your package.json to make it globally available. There is another resource on npmjs.com, so that is this, which consists of all the properties that package.json consists of. That is this. Pretty much what you have seen so far is code from here, but I would rather recommend you guys following this link, which I'm going to paste it to all of you. So you guys can follow this link here. Sorry. Yep. Here, this will be consisting of more updated information than any of the slides at any point of time, because this is a continuously updating document. So as you can see, we will be using the property called as bin to do this process. So you say bin my app, and then you mention the name of the JS file that gets invoked when you start or run an application. So we're going to deal with this more when we create our own application. You can also look into other properties of package.json here, which is needed for your application. Before you start doing something a bit different in the package.json, definitely consider going through these things, these properties which are available, and some of them have very minimal explanation. whereas others have a lot of explanation. You can go through Google, search them, and then you get the results. So the reason why I'm giving you an elaborated explanation of this is because NPM is still changing, and in a few days, currently NPM 2.x is going on, NPM 3.x will be released. Then a few properties of this might be changed and might be different from what we are seeing here today. So the best bet for you guys is to come here, check out what is there in this particular file. So we have already seen how to run scripts with this. So we're going to look at another module called as JS hint and UnCSS today, which will take care of running some test cases and some code compilations and things like that. You can also use the NPM as a build tool, which I highly discourage doing unless until you have a very small and isolated app. Because if you're going to use the package.json or NPM as a build tool, the number of options you are having is going to be limited. I would rather recommend using a module like Grunt or Gull or Broccoli to do this. So we're going to talk about those also a bit later. Sorry. Yeah. So here, if you are going to use it as a build tool, you can say npm start, that starts your particular server or service. Npm test, which will help you test the application. Npm stop, which will actually stop the application. So this is like a process of building things. You can also create a process like npm linked, where, as you have seen earlier, you can run a JS hint or a code quality tool. In JS hint, if you guys do not already know, is a code quality tool written to analyze the standards and coding conventions of JavaScript to avoid bugs and defects. So similarly, you can build all your tools in the npm scripts and work with it. You can also use the pre and post hooks available. Imagine you want to, when your module gets installed, you want to run a post install script. Check if everything is working fine or certain requirements are met. Or before the module is installed, you want to check a particular version of Node or a particular other package is installed or not. Things like that, you can use the pre and post hook to do that. Generally, we use the post install script a lot for doing post installation. So you have module A and module B. Module B is dependent on module A. So we never explicitly load module B. Rather, once module A is installed, in post-install script of module A, we load module B. We're going to look at that, and I'll show you a couple of places when we're doing mean.js or the mean stack development where this command is highly helpful. So the following package.json runs pre-lint first, and then lint, and then post-lint. This is how the 3 steps go. This can be done for any task, test, pre-test, and post-test, and so on. The condition is that you can look at the word lint, pre and post. That's the only catch here. Also, you can pass arguments to your scripts. So you can also pass arguments to underlying commands in the script using the hyphen operator. Kapil had a question. He says, is hooks part of scripts? Yes, hooks are part of scripts. So now you can do run ice cream minus vanilla.js. So this vanilla.js will get passed as an argument to the sum command. So you can actually do this npm run and the name of the script, excuse me, and then you can pass in an argument. So this argument can be passed to this. So as I told you, right, when you are working with the mean stack, when we have our own package.json for setting up the base package, then we are going to use these commands for building the application. Also, to create a module or package for use, you can consider the following example. Function hello returns hello world. Module.export say hello, say message is hello. Now when you require the /file, you can say say.say hello. Now this would execute the hello function in message.js. We discussed about this yesterday. In each module, the module free variable is a reference to the object representing the current module. That is the word say. Assigning your function or object to a variable under the module.exports make the function or object available to others. Also, you could have as many functions in the message.js, each having corresponding variable to have a corresponding variable in module.exports. You can do it that way also. Today when we are building the calculator function, we are going to attach 4 methods to the module.exports. So you can use that to work with the application as well. Okay, so I will show how to run multiple arguments when you're running your script a bit later. Because as I mentioned, we will rarely use this, but when we get there, I'll show you how to use it. Okay, loading files and modules. So let's pause the presentation for now and let's go back and do some hands-on work so that you guys can get an idea of where we are headed to. I have created another folder called as session2. Now I'm going to create another folder inside called as example1. So this is session2 example1. So the first thing, whenever we are going to work with a Node project, you guys can follow along with me on this. So you guys can, yesterday if you did remember, we created the session1 folder. You can create the session2 folder. And then inside that you can create a folder called as example1. In the example1 folder, open a terminal or prompt based on your operating system, and then we'll work together on this one. So once you have in the example1 folder, right, you open the command prompt, you will be starting off a new Node project. From now on, whenever I say creating a new Node project, it means running NPM init. So now you know what to do with these properties. So whatever, when you run NPM init in your system, it's going to ask you the example version, sorry, the name of the project. So we're going to say example1 or whichever you are comfortable with. I'm just going to give the version as 0.1.0, a description as a file reader app. So basically we are going to read files from here. And the entry point of the application is going to be index.js. We are not going to have any test command, no GitHub repository, no keywords, no author information, the default license, or you can use the MIT, then click yes. This will take care of generating our package.json. This is a quick and fast way of scaffolding a new Node project. I highly recommend doing an NPM init before you start off a new Node project. Next, we're going to create a new file called as index.js, right? So since index.js is going to be our starting point to the application, we're going to create a file called as index.js. As of now, I'm going to close the package.json since we don't need anything from it. In this particular example, what we are going to do is that we're going to use Node.js core module named FS. Okay, so one way is I can tell you how to do it, what is available right now. But the actual way is that whenever you are planning to use any Node modules, I highly recommend you going or directly searching NPM API, sorry, Node API and the name of the module FS. This will take you to the documentation where it will consist of all the information for the FS module. The FS module here says it has quite a few methods. You see that every single method has two states. One, non-asynchronous, that is non-blocking, another one is blocking. Anything which has an extension called as sync will run in a blocking way or the traditional way. Anything which does not have the word sync, it does not work the traditional way. So you can see the list of properties that are available here. For the first example, we are going to look at API called as fs.read file. So if you go halfway down the documentation, you will go to this particular section called as fs.read file. So here they have provided a quick example of how you can use it, right? Excuse me. So the property is pretty simple. The first argument is the name of the file you would like to read. The second argument, generally the last argument of your any method in Node.js will consist of the callback. Anything from, if there are n arguments, 0 to n-1 arguments will consist of all the options, and the nth argument will consist of the callback. That is the understanding in any traditional Node application that is written. Also, one more convention that follows is that if any callback is available, there are always two arguments or at least one argument, where the first argument will always be the error. If there is any error, that is always the first argument. If you in future are designing a Node module by yourself, you should always keep this thing in mind that 0 to n-1 arguments in your function should be the options and the nth argument should be the callback function. And the callback function, when you invoke it from your application, should have the error as the first argument. If you have an error, you send that object. So in this scenario, you say callback of null, comma, the data. Then the user would check if error, throw error. If it is null, it does not execute, but rather console.log data. So this is the convention when working with Node applications. So we are going to take a look at the API, fs.read file. So since this is a core module of Node.js, we're going to say var fs equal to require fs. It automatically loads it up. Next, what we are going to do is that in the current folder, we have this package.json. Just for fun, we're going to read that file and print its contents in the console. So the way you do it is fs.read file and then the argument /package.json. So as you see here, fs.read file, the first argument is this. The second argument is the callback which we are going to write. So that is going to be comma function err comma data, or you can also call it contents of the file. Now I can check if err throw indirectly use throw, else, that means there is no error, we say console.log contents. So this is how typically you read file contents of a file. I'm going to clear my console. Now I run node index.js and then it is going to print. What happened here? It just printed the buffer. It just took the file, read the contents of it and printed. But we want, this is English for us. Or in the computer language, this is UTF-8 encoded text that we see here. So the way you do it is that you pass the second argument to the fs.read file method called as UTF-8. Now when I run node index.js, it's going to read the file with UTF-8 encoding and print the contents of it. So this should give you an idea of how to interact with the package.json, the contents of it, and then print the values here. So just for fun, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to misspell the file name, and let's see what happens with the error. So now I have misspelled the file name. I'm going to clear the console, then run the same command, and then you say that it throws a new error. Enoent open dot this thing. There's an error at this location. So generally messages like this always occur. It gives you the line number where all this is happening. Index.js line 7, that is pretty much where that is thrown. So you can copy this message if you don't understand what is happening. You can go to Google and then just paste it there. Because debugging this, I might not be there always. So the best thing to do is that take the error message and you hit it, you'll get this thing. Node.js cannot open files, error enoid stat path to file. So it's pretty clear that the open method instead of the stat method is used, and then there is some issue. So it says path specified with the dots are relative and so on. So you can read through the whole process and do stuff with it. That's another way of debugging your example. Since we already know what the issue is, I'm going to revert back. So next thing what we are going to look at is another Node module called as, the first example which you have seen here is reading a file asynchronously. So to prove that, I say console.log another independent operation. Okay. Now when I run this, you'll see another independent operation and then you'll see the example one. Because printing the second operation is not dependent on the contents of this thing. If I have to do something like this here, this will throw an error because my package was never defined, of course, for obvious reasons, but you can, you understand this point, right? So that means that this whole process is pushed into the event loop. And then this gets pushed into the event loop. This callback gets fired only after this process is completed. So this way, this whole process is non-blocking. So as per Ryan Dahl, when he was trying to upload the image to Flickr, he noticed this whole thing that once till the image upload is over, nothing can be happened in parallel. So for instance, like for example, I'm going to comment out this piece. Then I'm going to write something called as var contents equal to fs.readFileSync. Sync stands for synchronous. Say /package.json, comma, UTF-8. Now I say console.log. I'm going to copy this thing, where my package equal to json.parse of contents, and then console.log, I'm going to run it as my package.name. Now if I go back to the terminal, clear it, I'm going to move my terminal to the top or a place where you can see it. Okay, I hope this is fine. And then I'm going to run node index.js. You see here, it says example1, another independent operation runs after it. So this is a traditional way of coding where we write down all the IO operations. Using this very syntax called as fs.readFile instead of readFileSync, this whole thing works the same way. So this is how you make sure that in Node.js things run asynchronously. You guys have any questions on this? You guys can actually try this out. This is again present in the documentation. If you scroll down a bit below fs.readFile, we'll have readFileSync. Synchronous version of fs.readFile returns the contents of the file name. If the encoding option is specified, then this function returns a string, otherwise it returns a buffer. Pretty much standard. So you can see that every single file operation method in Node.js has these two flavors. Any IO operation related API method will have two flavors. One, the asynchronous way, two, the synchronous way. There are some times where you might need to do things synchronously still. So for those reasons, you can use this. So this is how typically we actually do a file reading or file processing in Node.js. So if I keep everything here and run this, you know that example1, okay, let me put a message called as async sync. So first the sync message runs, another independent operation runs, and then the async runs. So async is pretty much independent of the order of flow. Things happen when they are supposed to happen. This is how you can defer a request, right? The next thing we're going to look at is something called as global modules. So all the modules we have written so far are local modules which are available locally to your application, either inside your Node modules or loaded along with your file system. So if you guys go to npmjs.com and then you can search for a module named uncss. So if you have done a bit of web development in your career, so you know that there are huge number of web pages and every single web page consists of a lot of CSS which it does not use. So you have your app is of version 1, then it moves to version 2. A lot of styles which are in version 1 which goes to version 2, people are scared to remove because they don't know where and all it is being used. So for that very reason, people have come up with a module called as uncss. This removes unused CSS styles in your web page. Okay, this can be used as a command line as well as you can use it with Node.js. First, I'm going to show you how to use this with command line and install it using -g flag. So for testing purposes, I don't know which page can we go to. We can go to the site called as getbootstrap.com. Bootstrap is another front-end development framework. If you did not already know, it's responsive and it's quite heavily used by the web today. Under the Getting Started section, Getting Started page, you'll see the examples on the right-hand side. When you click on examples, it will take you to a page here. Now, this is the sample template with which you can use. Generally, people come here, either right-click, inspect element. I'm going to push it back into my DevTools. And then I'll click on the nav bar and right-click, copy, and then I get the whole HTML and I start using it. But let us say that you're using only this much of a template, but you're loading the entire bootstrap.css file. So if I click here, it has the entire bootstrap.min.css file inside it. I'm not going to use print classes. I'm not going to use some other specific classes called as hidden MD, hidden MD, hidden LG, and so on, because I'm not using these things. I want to remove all the unwanted CSS. Or if I click on audits in my Chrome Developer Tools and click on Run Audit on Present State, if you see here, it does an analysis of network utilization and web page performance, and click on Run. And it comes back saying that remove unused CSS rules. There are 1338 unused CSS rules on this page, which is affecting the page size. So we now know that unused CSS causes the unwanted page size. So if only we have a Node module which takes care of handling this. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to copy this link for now, or I'll rather go back to uncss, and then I'm going to take this command called as npm install -g uncss. I'll go back to my terminal. Do remember that whenever you are running any command with -g, you can be at any location on your terminal or command prompt while running it, because this module is not going to be installed locally on that folder, but rather globally. So when I run npm install -g uncss, it's going to install this globally. So let me show you what happens. It downloaded all the modules to it. So I'm going to press Ctrl L. Now, when I run uncss directly in the command prompt, it is going to execute that module. Now this becomes a command line tool for us. Uncss and no arguments should typically print all the values. Here, I don't know why it's stuck. Or you can run uncss -v. So minus capital V, yeah. And CSS minus capital V will give you the version of this thing. As you can see, let me show you again. I am going to uninstall this module, npm uninstall -g. Remember, if you install a module globally, you have to uninstall the module globally as well. Now it is gone. Now when I run uncss minus capital V, it is saying command not found uncss, because the command doesn't exist. If I go ahead and install it, it becomes a command line tool, and we are going to look at the source code of uncss, not the logic part of it, but the structure part of it. Now it installs everything. As you can see, the location where it is mapped to here. User local bin uncss is the place where the installer is present. All the dependency files are present inside user local lib node modules folder uncss bin uncss. If you are a Windows machine user, you will probably have this inside roaming/data for your user account. Inside the node_modules folder is the source code which resides, whereas the executable uncss resides inside the bin folder. So this is what that statement means. Now, if you come back to the documentation and scroll down a bit, it says that the way you can do it is uncss options and file or the URL where you want to save the file to. So I'm going to create another folder in my session 2 called as example2. CD into that folder. So let us say that I want to save all the used styles for this particular page. Get bootstrap.com example/starter template. All I need to do is that uncss, name of the page where I want to do it, a right arrow mark and say used, or probably can call it my styles .css and hit return. This will go download the page, analyze for all the conditions which are available, and create a file called as mystyle.css, which is consisting of only the used styles here. If I go back, open example2, you should see that mystyles.css is created. So how was it created? Using this uncss command and then saving the values. So it identified only the list of classes which I'm using. So typically this is around 500 lines of code. Whereas if I come back here to my source in the developer tools and click on this little squiggly brace, it's around a 7,000 lines application. And then there is no class called as print. If I copy this @media print and search, oops, maybe it's being used somewhere, sorry. There's one more hidden -lg. LG. So this class which we have seen there is not available here. As you can see here, this is not being used here, so all the unwanted styles are ripped off. So when you are migrating your application from phase 1 to phase 2 and you want to do this, you can easily do this, removing all the unwanted styles. So since this is a global package, you can use the command line tools to do it, like uncss space the name of this thing. So this is more of if there is only one developer running in your project and then who's managing everything, this would be easy. Another option in Node.js is that you can take this module and run from within Node.js as well, as like this. So you say where uncss require uncss. This is how we require a module. Then where files, you can specify a list of URLs that needs to run through this, okay, which is my array of HTML files. In our scenario, this is going to be only the name of the website from which we are going to do this. uncss also provides a list of options where you can configure it to download, exclude, include, manage, and do everything. You can ask it to ignore, you can ask it to ignore a given selector, do not remove given selectors from this thing even though it is not being used. Specify the media paths, process additional media queries than what is specified, relative path where the CSS files are located, style sheets, ignore style sheets, raw content, pass in the raw string of CSS if you are using it. For example, you come here, I'm going to press this thing again. If you want to pass this whole raw CSS to command line, you can use the raw flag where it takes in the string and then gives you the unwanted CSS. A timeout in case if there is a JavaScript evaluation to apply your styles, which you'll understand a bit later. HTML root, the absolute part, and a configuration file which mention all these things. Something like this. Sometimes when you're working with Node modules, it is always good to check their GitHub repositories. Inside the GitHub repositories, sometimes you'll find a folder called as examples where some of the examples might have already been written. In this case, we do not have one. So you can go back and then we'll see here how to set this up using Node.js. I'm going to copy this thing, go back to my example2 folder, create a file called as index.js and save that. Now, where uncss is equal to require uncss. This module is now loaded globally, and then your Node module checks for it, not from the local folder, but from the global folder and then load it. Under where files, I'm going to say this very link. And then I'm not going to pass in any options. I'm going to call the uncss function, passing in the list of files and output. I say if error, throw error. Else, you can use this because since throw works like this, it will take care of doing it. Okay, so now when I go back to the terminal and run node index.js, it should have loaded this generally from the global folder. One second, let me see if I'm missing anything. So Vasudev, you asked the question, what does global mean in this context? Global means the path where we have installed this, that is which on CSS, this path is the global path. So this is what I meant when I say global. But my understanding is that if you have this installed globally, it's going to work without that. Sorry, looks like it is not. Maybe we need to run npm install uncss -- save. That is to install it locally. Could it have been on a network instead? I don't think so. If it is on a network, it would work. No, I don't think so. If it is on a network, it would work. it needs to be on the same PC as the program you're running on. As far as I know, I have never tried it out, but that's a good experiment. We can check it out and see how it works. So this is installed locally. Oops. Now the same process happens from command line, node index.js, and then it goes, gets set, and now we are printing the list of styles into our command prompt. That's what we did here. So we said uncss files error output. If error, throw error, else console.log out. Okay. So with this, you can see how easy it is to integrate a node module and start working with it. So you guys have any questions on this? How global modules work and how local modules work? What did we change to eliminate the initial error? I installed the node module locally. So when you install the node module locally, this require uncss is looking up the local chain and then loading it. So far, I've never used a -g module or a global module into local, something like this. But there is always possibility you can do that. As you can see inside your local module, also the bin folder has been created with the uncss commands. So you can take a look at this at your leisure. This is all pure JavaScript which you see here. No other language, how uncss works. Using the process object, using the options, whatever you have passed. When you run uncss in your command prompt, and CSS, and then, yep, I think so this should print the list of things here. I don't think so they have one. If there is no argument.length, whatever. So this will generally print out the list of options which is available here. Great. So you can go through the documentation. Most of the node modules are very well documented, so you can get a feel of it quite easily. So generally, if you're looking for examples, right, I'll probably show you where you can find some examples. I think Express has their example folder, if I'm not wrong. Let me quickly check. So you can generally go to the package in the npmjs.com, click on the link. Yeah, see here, generally you will find this folder like examples in the GitHub repo. When you click on it, you'll have a bunch of examples that they have written using this. MVC, multipart, Jade, Hello World application, and when you click on it, you'll have the source code for it. So pretty much what we're going to take a look a bit later on as well. So there are quite a few node modules coming up these days. You can see what is the speed at which things are happening. There are around 143,000 packages on NPM as of today. Around, I don't know, it's a very good number of downloads in the last day, last week, and imagine the downloads in the last month. You can see the list of modules which are available there. We'll talk about a bit about Browserify later on. Grunt CLI we're going to take a look at today. The Karma is a test runner for JavaScript code. You are already using the NPM package manager. Gulp, Grunt, Gover, Less, a simple lightweight HTTPD, network daemon tools to collect metrics, a forever tool, and so on. So you can see a list of packages that are there on NPM. So NPM has a list of configurations. So I'm going to close this and say NPM config. So in your corporate networks, if you are using this for your office purposes or running under firewall, you might need to set a few configs in your application. So you can use the syntax called as npm config set, whatever key is the value, or npm get is the key. So for example, you want to see what are the things which are configurable here. You're going to run npm config list. We have a user agent which is configured, the bin location, the command, the configs. Generally, we have this npm config for registry. npm config get registry. It will return the URL of the registry where you are using. So sometimes in the corporate, HTTPS URL might not be allowed. So you can update this value saying npm config set registry to some other registry which is approved by your company, or you can actually use the HTTP version of it to download your assets. Now when I say NPM get registry, it uses the HTTP version instead of the HTTPS version. Also, this URL can be replaced with NPM repositories out there. So a few days ago, I have been working with a package, NPM package called as a private NPM. I forgot the name. It's called way too many modules to remember. It starts with an S. Sinopia. Yeah, sorry, it's called as Sinopia. npmjs.com. And then it's a module called as Sinopia, SYNOPIA. I'm sorry for the Googling. Yeah, SYNOPIA. So if you want, for your organization, you can implement your own private NPM repository server. That's a very nice point, Kapil thinks that they should start categorizing the packages on NPM repo. Trust me, there are so many packages out there which are practically aimless. There is no easy way to categorize these things. The only way you can find them is using the keywords. So the keywords which I typed did not match anything. I said private modules. There are so many packages out there which use this private modules. But yeah, anyways, you just need to remember it. As of now, I don't think so I have a method which I can give you that tells you where to find what. You see me, right, practically Googling everything here and there. Anyway, back to the requirement here. If your organization is not willing to check in packages into NPM repository, you can create your own private repository manager called as Sinopia. Okay, so here you can find a lot of private packages which you create for your organization hosted, which never goes to the public repository. This was a solution available before NPM launched the private repositories, which was probably 2-3 weeks ago. Before that, I used to use NPM for corporates, which I used to consult for doing private repos. And it is one of the most safest ways of accessing it. You can control the application access, the usage, who can check in or create a new package, and so on. So if you are interested, you can go through this Sinopia for your organization. But now NPM has created its own paid version of private modules. You can see the link on top, NPM private modules, where you can create your own private modules by paying amount, and then you get your own username, and using that username you can create your own project in NPM. So that's pretty much, you can try it out. But I like the servers. There are still companies which are out there which are using their own private version of NPM. All the commands would still remain same, except the registry URL will be pointing to your server, http://10.188.12.1/my-registry instead of the public registry. So now any NPM install, NPM updates happen, go through this server, and this server decides whether the package is safe or not for your company and whether that package should be downloaded or not. You can approve or reject or do anything. This is pretty good. You should definitely check this out in case you're considering writing your own NPM packages for your organization. So NPM config at a high level can set properties like these to work with it. You can read through the documentation of the various properties, set, get, list, and so on. Yep, that is about NPM registry. As and when we go along with it, you can do that. So for the people who do not have a GitHub account, we'll spend 5 to 10 minutes in setting up the GitHub and NPM account. You guys can go to github.com. When you go to github.com, you can pick a username by clicking sign up. Give a name, give an email address, give a password, and create an account. If you're not able to do it during the session, you can do it later on also. But for the people who already have a GitHub account, you guys can directly sign in. Once you sign in, you can see a list of your feed if you have any. Once you go to your github.com/your username, that is where you can see your status, commits, check-in, the organizations you are part of, and so on. That is step one. We need a GitHub repository to do all these things. The next is to create a NPM account. You can go to npmjs.com. On the top right hand corner, you'll have something called as sign up or login. If you do not have an account, click on sign up. You'll be asked to give a username. There is no hard and fast rule of having your GitHub account as your username, but I generally use it that way. My GitHub account username is same as my NPM username as well. So I get that will be easy for me to remember most of the things, because you know how many things we need to remember in today's authentication. So if you you can actually come here, click on create an account, give a username, give a password, give a verified password and email address. The only condition is that it should be in lowercase and it should compose of URL safe characters. So 9 out of 10 times your GitHub user account will work, GitHub user ID will work, account name will work here. I'm going to give you like 3 minutes to set up a NPM account. Probably you might get an activation mail. If you click on it, it gets activated. I don't remember, I done it quite a long time back. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to set up your NPM account. So I had an interesting conversation here. So the question was, why do you need an NPM account? So you need an NPM account so that you can publish your own packages. That was the primary understanding. And you can share these packages with others to use it. Remember, we installed the chalk package. We installed the uncss package. Somebody else has created that with their own username and account and pushed it to the NPM repository, and then you can start using it. So that is why we primarily need an NPM account. So I'm assuming people who wanted to do the hands-on have already created an account. After you have done it, you can click on login. Once you log in, you'll be taken to your home page, which shows the list of packages which you have pushed into GitHub. I've done quite a few work in the last few days, but I'm not actively developing these days on NPM. Written quite a few modules. So now this is your NPM account. Right? So now, as I discussed earlier, we are going to create a calculator app. Not rocket science, nothing great, but you'll get a feel of what we are trying to do with the Node module, and we're going to push it to the NPM repository. So first, let us focus on the business logic. Then I'll show you tips and tricks on how you can easily push modules to NPM this thing. We're going to deal a bit about manually doing it, a bit about a tooling system available out there. Okay? So if you guys are interested, you can create a third folder called as example3. In the example3, we are going to create a calculator app, a module which is going to have a calculator, add, subtract, delete, and multiply. So the convention states that whenever you want to create a new Node module, you're going to start off with npm init. Here I'm going to call it calc app. 0.1.0 is the version. The description says a test calc app. Entry point is index.js. The test command is nothing for now. GitHub repository. I'll leave it empty for now. Keywords, calculator, add, subtract, multiply, divide. Author, I'll give my name. License, MIT. I just want to keep it open source, yes. So this will take care of creating my package.json file. Next, I'm going to create another file called as index.js. Pretty much standard. I'm going to create another file called as calculator.js. So the idea is that now I'm going to create a module in my local project called as calculator.js. This particular module is a utility for my application, which consists of 4 methods, add, subtract, multiply, and divide, which is going to be used by my main application file index.js. Okay, so let us create a namespace called as calc. Okay, it's up to you how you would like to design this. I'm going to create a JavaScript object notation, and then an object notation, and then I'm going to create 4 methods inside it like this. We're going to call it a plus b, and then I'm going to say return a plus b. Method called as sub, mul, and div. Subtraction a minus b, multiplication a into b, division A/B. Simple. This is my module. Now I say module.exports equal to calc. I'm going to export the whole module as it is. You can also create a namespace inside the main application.calc as we have seen yesterday to do this. So first I'll show you this approach of how things work, and then we're going to look at the other approach of how things work. Okay? So module.exports calc. In my index.js, I'm going to create a method called as calc equal to require dot slash calculator.js. Now, var a equal to 10, var b equal to 20, var c equal to calc dot add of a comma b. I want to say console.log c. Right? So this is pretty much accessing the module. Nothing great we have done so far. Now if I go back to my command line, clear the console and run node index.js, it's going to say sum equal to 30. Pretty simple, whatever we have done. If you would like to namespace the export as in like dot calc equal to calc, I'll make it like this, equal to calc. Now you cannot directly access calc here. You should say calc.calc.add, because this variable is mapped to this local variable, which is now storing the entire object. To get the value of the entire object's add method, we're going to actually use the calc.calc.add. If I run this, now the sum will be 30 because of this. To make the module look a bit elegant, I generally do not prefer adding a namespace to the export. So this is one way of setting this up. So let's say that you have built your own library here, your own library or list of functions which you think somebody else also can be used. It can be used for somebody else also pretty helpful, like the un-CSS module, like the chalk module, where all your teammate has to do is run npm install calc and he gets the calculator module locally. And then he can directly start using it in his application, which will be presented as Node Modules folder. So this is the whole process of setting up the NPM account, that we are going to create a Node module and push it into the application. So the manual way of doing it. So if you go back to your terminal/prompt, we are going to run a command called as npm add user. So when you click on npm add user, it will ask you to enter the username. The password, what you have created. So while typing, it will be disabled. So what is the email address with which you have created the account? That's it. Now my NPM account is set up. So I highly recommend you guys doing this if you are following along with me to publish a Node module. Great. So everybody has created their NPM account. Whoever wants to follow along has run the npm add user and has logged into their NPM account. I hope everybody has done that. Right? So now our process is that we want to push this module to the public NPM repository, where your teammates, your friends, or somebody who would like to access it will download it and use it, the same way how we are doing with other Node modules. Right? So for us to do this particular process, so first and foremost, or the most important thing, is that the name in the package.json should be unique. Okay? No package, two packages with the same name should not exist in the NPM registry. So you will find very weird names in the NPM packages, as you see here. So if I go to npmjs.com, this is the easiest way which I found to check. I click on any package. As you see, the URL gets updated saying that npmjs.com/package/express. Now, if I paste my package name, which I have given here, that is calc app, and hit enter, if it opens up a page, that means it exists. that package exists and you cannot do a push. But if that page does not exist, it means that it is available for us to use. So this is one easy way to check if your package name is available or not. It was very surprising to see that people didn't use the namespace calc app. That's very surprising. So this is how we actually configure it and then push it to the NPM repository. But to make sure that you guys understand the modern tooling system and modern things which come up with these things, I don't want to use the manual process of pushing something to the repository. But pushing something to the repository is as easy as running two commands. Command 1, npm add user, which is a one-time command which you will be running to set up the npm in your local machine. Command 2 is the folder from which you are going to run this, right? Calc app. Okay. Now I'm going to run npm publish and hit enter. It says invalid name calc app. Okay, should be small. Oh, maybe that's why it's not available. Let's try all small letters. Yeah. Oh yeah, calc app will be yours. So nobody has done this yet. So we are going to take advantage of that. The first mistake which you guys did not understand, the mistake I did is that I created the name of the package.json with camel case. The name of the package.json should always be in small letters. It's a mistake which I did. I fixed it by making it small letters, went back to the package location in the NPM, and then accessed the same name, and it says not found. Calc app will be yours. So I'll go back to my terminal in the example3 folder and run npm publish. Once I hit npm publish, Node will take care of all these modules and dump it into the repository. Now, if I refresh, magic is in front of your eyes. The calc app was published by me 2 minutes ago. Okay, now there is no GitHub link associated with this. So people cannot raise issues, track the bugs, or do anything with it. Okay, so no README file was found. Nothing has changed. Okay, so the next step is that let us assume our project is published. Now, by the way, if you guys run npm install calc app in your machines, you're going to get the source code. Just to quickly show you that, I'm going to create a new folder called as example4. Okay, inside this I'm going to, okay, let me open a new terminal here. This is the example4 folder. I say npm init. My app is going to call as test calc app. Oh, same mistake. 0.1.0. I'm going to leave everything blank as it is. The package.json gets created. Now I run npm install calc app -- save. You see here, now it has downloaded the calc app repo. Remember the index.js file, the calculator.js file. We did not, this is not a valid, by the way, the very important point here is that this is not a valid package, this is not a valid module for you guys to consume it. Because the calculator.js, there's an index.js. Now, for instance, if I come here, say new file and type index.js inside it, var cal equal to require calc app. Oops, I created this at the wrong location. Let me close off my existing file so that you guys are not confused with what's happening. I'm going to create a new file inside example4 folder called as index.js. I'm going to say var calc app equal to require calc app. Okay, now there is no / nothing. This is an installed module, so we're going to refer it like this. So remember, in example3 folder where we created this, what happens when you run node index.js? The whole thing gets executed. So now this is probably going to throw an error, hopefully. When I say node index.js, it's going to execute the index.js file here, and then that's it. Nothing happens. We never expose the calculator.js file as a package to our application, right? We rather expose the index.js file here. As you can see from here, it says main file is called as index.js. So when NPM runs, when you do a require, in your application require calc app, this is the file which gets loaded. That is index.js. What happens when I invoke index.js? This function executes and the output is print in the page. Even though I did not write any console logs or anything, this one line executed the code which is present inside my module. Does everybody understood what the issue is here? Using an NPM module is totally different from publishing your NPM module. That is the point I'm trying to make here. I'm going to give a minute so that you guys, if you have any questions, you can post it here. The next step is I'm going to show you how to expose the calculator itself, not the index.js file which you used for testing. Okay, I'm thinking there are no questions, so I'll go ahead. So now, going back to the example 3 folder, I'm going to close the example 4 for now. In the example 3 folder, we mentioned something called as main. So when you run require the name of the app, your Node modules look for the main property of it and then load up that particular value into the require statement. Okay. So now what we are going to do is that we are going to change this to calculator.js. We are not going to use index.js anymore in our app. We just use index.js to test the application. Whereas our business or the meat lies in the calc folder, right? So either you can keep index.js, delete it, or probably move it to another folder called as examples and then ship it also. It's up to you. In the package.json, I have made this change and moved my application to calculator.js. Now, I would like to publish this. So, we were speaking about Semver. Semver is SEM versioning system. 2 modules, I'm going to close the example 4 terminal. I'm going to keep the example 3 terminal open. 2 modules, the same module cannot be pushed twice to the NPM with the same version. It does not make sense. If you are making an upgrade or making changes like what we have done here, this is a major change, right? So I'm going to put this under the, this is major version, this is minor version, and this is the patch version. That indicates this. So this is quite a big change. It is not something which is going to change the application itself, but rather a small change but a significant change. So I'm going to make this change and increase the version of this thing. So to show what NPM does if I do not change the version, I'm going to run, after making changes to my source code, I'm going to run npm publish. It's going to complain saying that failed put on 403. It says that you cannot publish over the previously published version. If you need help, read this thing. Okay? Now, the point is that we're going to change it to 0.2.0. Now when I do npm publish, it's going to publish the new version. That is 0.2.0 version. Okay? Now, if I go back to the npm.js, refresh it, on the right hand side, you can see that probably it might take a minute. It might take a minute to load this up to 0.2.0 version. Okay? I'll probably try it one last time. No, it's not yet updated. So it might take some time for the updation, but I can go back to my example 4 folder. I'm going to close the example 3 folder. Inside the example 4 folder, there is package.json. This is a very important point to be made here. Always mention the version of your dependency explicitly. While creating the dependencies, you can use latest. When you run npm install, at that moment, whichever is the latest version will get downloaded. But in your production applications or the applications which are trying to deploy this to, never ever use latest. Without your knowledge, the package owner might have upgraded it to something else which will make you crash the app. So always use the version of it. Now, I can change the version of my app to 0.2.0 because I have upgraded it. I go to the example 4 folder. Inside the example 4 folder, I'm going to run npm update. This is going to get the latest version of calcap, which is 0.2.0. It says that calcap was updated. Now, if I go to index.js, Previously, when we ran NPM, when we ran Node index.js in example 4 folder, it printed the output of the index file. Now it should not. It is just a library right now. It is just a library which is exposing the calculator folder here. That is this. Now, what I can do is that I'm going to do the same example here. Instead of this, I'm going to say calc app. Now, when I run index.js, the sum is 30. You see this now. Once pushing this app, calc app, to the public repository, your whole team can start utilizing the features and functionalities of these things. I'm going to give a 5 minutes break, or probably there's 8 minutes break. You guys can take a moment, go to the GitHub, check out what is there for this particular package. That is npmjs.com/calcapp. I hope it should be updated by now. Yes, it's updated. Check out what is there. Since we did not associate any GitHub with it, you're not going to find any source code, because this is one way you can abstract the source code. But unfortunately, when somebody does npm install, they get the whole source code to them. So what you guys can do right now is that create a new project called as example 4, and then npm install calc app, and then run this as node index.js. So this calc app is something which we just created as our own module, and this should work fine. So I hope everybody at least got a concept or a grasp of what we are trying to achieve. We are trying to create our own node modules and push it into npm repository so that everybody can contribute. So today's open source world is pretty heavily driven. If you already would have seen the amount of contributions people are doing, putting stuff on the public repos, so that you don't spend time in creating or doing those mundane tasks. So one of the perfect examples is this library from the NPM repo called as bcrypt. So bcrypt is a library for Node.js for doing or managing securities. So you want to safely create securities, you can use it. A lib to help you hash passwords. So you remember the process of creating a salt and the password and then managing it. So this is one library out there. So there's another library for which one we saw chalk for doing all these things. Next, for managing your NPM, there is a library. Managing your Node.js, there is a library. So if you want to integrate your Node.js app with MySQL, so you want to have your business logic written in Node.js, whereas your database wants to be in MySQL, there is a MySQL driver for Node.js. Everything is, it's as simple as running npm install MySQL, and then you can start using var MySQL equal to require MySQL connection, start writing queries. Remember the asynchronous pattern we were talking about? All the node modules which involve I/O operations will be asynchronous in nature. So this is one. Then what else can I talk about? MySQL builders, anything dealing with MySQL. So if you want to integrate MongoDB, there is an awesome library called as Mongo.js. Mongo.js is this super awesome library for creating, interacting with MongoDB with a simplified API. And there is something else this is something which I wrote called as /mongo for managing MongoDB with Express in Mongo.js. So we'll talk about this later on when we work with the full stack development approach and so on. The thing with UI development, I have a question from English. How can I write my own async module without using Node.js? That's a very nice question. So I'll give this answer to you in the most abstracted way as possible. There is a library called as libuv, if I'm not wrong. This is the library which is used by Node.js to make things asynchronous. Okay, it's a multi-platform support library with asynchronous I/O. It was primarily developed for the use by Node.js. It is used by all these things. So if you're feeling adventurous, fork this repo, use it in your project, convert all your source code to make work with asynchronous. So it works with the concepts of event loops by ePoll, which we discussed yesterday. I mean, this whole thing is not part of the training curriculum, but since you asked, I'm pointing you to a place where you can find it. So this is how Node.js implements its asynchronous pattern, and yes, it's as dangerous as it looks here. So single handling, high resolution, and this thing. You want me to send the link? You can get it from here. You can directly search libuv in Google. If you search libuv, you will get this repo, the first link. And then it says it is migrated to this location. Click on this and then you can get this. So you can do this. This is a cross-platform and cross-operating system, multi-platform support. So this runs on Windows, Linux, and Macintosh as well. I guess that answers your question. So that is not part of the training curriculum because we are not going to dig how Node.js works by itself. So anyways, coming back to our problem at hand, the Node.js or the web development community or the JavaScript development community, if you may, does not have an IDE per se. Okay, you guys are typically from the Java background, so you understand that you have an Eclipse. When you want to create a new Node project, any Java project, you say go to Eclipse, file new Java project, provide the name of the project, give a namespace, finish. It creates the projects and files for you. But in the Node.js environment or the JavaScript or the web development environment, we do not have anything like that. But since you see the versatility of Node.js and the ease of creating applications or command line tools or scaffolding tools is pretty simple in Node.js, so they have come up with a module called as Yeoman. Yeoman is a web scaffolding tool for building modern apps. Okay, so if you have not heard about it, Yeoman was created from a bunch of guys over the internet who are obsessed about tooling and automation generation. On the right hand side, you can see the people who actually created it. If you did not already know, Adi Osmani is from Google. I don't know about Pascal Harting. Paul Irish is from Google. Jimmy Moon, I'm not sure. Eric Bidelman is from Google. I don't think Chokeva is from Google. So these are the guys who work together. They are also part of the Chrome DevTools team. They work in building tooling inside the Chrome developer tools as well as provide a platform where you can use this to scaffold applications. These are something called as generators. Okay, so generators in simple words are basically code scaffolding tools. Like when you run 5 new Java project, you get a bunch of code related to that. In the same way, we use command line tools in Node.js to run this. Yo is the scaffolding tool engine which leverages Bower and Grunt to build the whole process. We are going to use Yeoman generators. We're going to use a Yeoman generator today for creating a Node module. Okay, we're going to scaffold a new Node module project. So, for example, what we have done today is that we created a folder called as example3, and we manually created all the files. So, we are not going to do that anymore. We are going to use a tool called as Yeoman, and then using this tool, we are going to generate or scaffold all our projects from now on. Yeoman setup is Yeoman setup is a one-time installation. For running Yeoman, you would require 3 modules. If you copy this command, which is present in yeoman.io site, go back to your terminal. As you see, it has minus. I'm really sorry. You see it has a -G flag, so it can be run from anywhere in the command prompt. You need to run Yeoman npm install -G yo, Bower, and grunt-cli. For you to use Node.js, all these 3 should be installed. And remember, for Bower to work, you should have Git installed on your machine. The Windows users, yesterday we downloaded the Git SCM module and you have set it up on your local machine. That will take care of installing Git for you. Macintosh and Linux users, if you did not do that process or you're using your native terminal, any terminal would work, but you need to have Git installed on your machine. You can go to git-scm.com. Click on the downloads link. There you can find the version for your application. Mac, Tarballs, Windows, source code. So you can get the Mac version of it, start using it. Then after that only you can start working with Bower. Bower, if you want to know more about Bower, I'm sorry for switching so many tabs. If you want to know more about Bower, you can go to So this will show you the information about the package module called as Bower, the browser package manager. It's a package manager for the web. It is used for scaffolding dependencies for front end. So you can read more about Bower here. Also, they have an official site called as bower.io. Similarly, how NPM.js consists of a place where you can search for modules, you can also search for Bower packages. On the top right hand corner, you'll see something called as search. So here, you can list or you can search for whatever you're looking for. So it says that example package name or a keyword owner or package name. So here, I'm going to type it in jQuery. So if you want to install jQuery using Bower, there's a command called as npm install jQuery. Sorry, Bower install jQuery. Just quickly. Okay, jQuery team itself, deployed so many files into the Bower manager. One is the jQuery boilerplate, mouse wheel, QUnit, Sizzle, jQuery mobile, and so on. Another famous package which you can run from Bower installation is Bootstrap. Bootstrap is the Twitter Bootstrap framework which we have just seen. On GitHub, it has around 80,000 stars. You can imagine the popularity. And so on. We are going to deal more about Bower packages a bit later when we are dealing explicitly with front-end development. But for running Yo, you would need Bower. Explicitly for running Node.js modules which we are going to use today, we are not going to use Bower. Okay, what is the benefit of using Bower install versus NPM install? Very nice question. I was about to talk about that thing as my next topic. So, using Bower, you can download dependencies. With NPM, you can download dependencies as well. These are two package managers available out there. The most important thing you need to understand, or the key difference between Bower versus NPM, is that NPM is a hierarchical dependency manager. As we saw yesterday, if package A has a dependency on package B, which has a dependency on package C, all of them are downloaded recursively till there is no packages available in a Node module, right? So this is how Node modules work. Typically, Node modules are used for dispatching Node-related code. At the same time, they are not limited to that. Even a Bower install, NPM install jQuery can be done. NPM install Bootstrap can also be done. But these two do not have a hierarchical dependency. When you're dealing with front-end development, let us say you want to use Bower in your project. You just need one Bower.js and one Bootstrap.js. I'm really sorry. If you want to use Bootstrap in your web page, you would just need Bootstrap.css and Bootstrap.js. You don't want the entire history of how many things it is dependent on. You would rather ask the owner to collate everything and give you one .js and one .css file so that you can directly consume it in your web application. Or rather, that is a convention how we have been developing so far. So Bower is more explicitly used for managing applications for your web development. So if I go back to the old tab which I just closed, and then I go to bower.io, here you can read more about this, saying that websites are made up of a lot of things, frameworks, libraries, assets. Bower manages all these things for you. It's a flat file system manager. You can read more about all these things. Bower commands are exactly same as NPM commands: Bower install, Bower uninstall, Bower update. Similarly, how you have a package.json file for NPM, you have a Bower.json file for Bower. NPM init, Bower init. Only difference is the way how the packages are wrapped around. So we're going to talk about this when we are dealing with front-end development using this. We can publish, so Kapil asked a question, we can publish in NPM, what about Bower? Yes, you can publish to Bower also. So I don't think so that comes under the part of our training series, but I'll show you how you can publish. So I'll show you a module which I published to here. I wrote my own Bower modules and then published it to the Bower repo. So you can find all my modules which I created here. Similarly, you can create your own and publish it. I'll probably give you a link where you can create and publish your Bower packages or how you could do that. But that is not part of the training which you're going to do. We are just going to consume these modules as it is. So does that answer your question? Both NPM versus Bower, and can we deploy our own Bower packages? Or rather, if you're feeling excited today night, you can go to bower.io, and then there is a link called as creating packages. Here they have written a list of things what you need to follow to deploy packages. Here we use npm publish, you can use bower register. And then you can give the name of the package. But the very important thing is that you should have a GitHub repository where this code is stored and you have to version it. So there's a process you can follow here and then you can do that. That is available on the bower side. Okay, perfect. So back to our problem at hand. So people who are following with me, you can run this command called as npm install -g yo bower and grunt CLI. You can write this command and hit enter. This will take up to 2 to 3 minutes to set up and download all these things on your machine. It says npm install -g yo space bower space grunt-CLI. You can use space between module names to install multiple modules at the same time. This is the command. Okay. Now, in the Yeoman site, that is yeoman.io, you can click on a link on top called as Discovering Generators. When you click on the link called as Discovering Generators, as we saw with NPM and Bower, they have a list of generators that are available out there for web development. So there is an Angular developer, WordPress development project scaffold. Because if you know, right, as I mentioned earlier, there is no way you can say file new WordPress project and then it scaffolds a WordPress project for you. There is nothing like that so far. Or file new Chrome extension. And then it does not happen anything like that. So in our application, we want to create a new Node module and push it to the NPM repository. For that reason, we don't want to manually generate everything every single time. Let us say that you want to publish 10 modules. You don't want to go about creating each files every single time. Rather, you would have a file new kind of a scenario where you can do that. Here, we are going to install a Node package called as generator-node. Okay, so generator-node takes care of scaffolding a project for you on the fly. In our scope of training, we are not going to discuss how to create your own Yeoman packages also. If you go back to the Yeoman side, on the top right-hand side, you have a link called as Creating a Generator. When you click on that link, they have a tutorial on how you can create your own generator for your projects. You'll understand the reason why you need a project as we go along. Also, a quick tip, there's a generator available out there to create your own generators. Yes, it's pretty deja vu here. So that's how things work in the Node world. The tooling system is so sweet that you end up spending a lot of time doing tooling. Your actual business logic would take 10 minutes, but the thing around it will take like 30 minutes. So you'll see as we go along. So in this particular scenario, what we are going to do is that we are going to install a module globally called as generator-node. So as you see yesterday, we have been using the -g flag, which is the shortcut for --global. Okay, you can use either -g or --global.